Let us discuss the mutation. What is mutation and its types, especially the germinal mutation and somatic mutation. And this is the class for 12th genetics. So, first of all, we may discuss mutation, what it actually means. So, students, it was Hugo de Varies in 1901 which observed this process or this phenomena in cells or in individuals, rather in organisms. So, when we are trying to define the mutation, it may be defined as the phenomena or process which results in the alteration of DNA sequences. As you know, that actually what chromosomes, they are the DNA molecules, and DNAs are already actually made up of nucleotide sequence DNA base pairs, and any alteration or change or mutation or variation occurs in these base pairs in these DNA sequences, and consequently they result in the change of genotype and phenotype of the organism. So when we will define, to simply, mutation may be defined as a process which results in the alteration of DNA sequence and consequently results in the change of genotype and phenotype of the organisms. Means, if there occurs any change in any DNA sequence in an organism, it changes the genotype as well as the phenotype of that organism. And this phenomena or process by virtue of which this change occurs, this is known as mutation, as described by Hugo de Varies in 1901. So mutation is a process which leads to variation in DNA. There is a DNA molecule in chromosomes, and by the process of mutation there occurs variation simply. So in any objective type of exam, you may be asked whether mutation brings about variation. Yes, you may write yes, you may say yes. So mutation is finally the process, it is the phenomena which leads to variation in DNA. And furthermore, when we are going to describe this in an enhanced mode, we may say that DNA, it is actually a helix molecule which is spirally surrounded with each other and which runs continuously from one end to the other. It has two ends, and spirally it gets twisted, and in between there lies the DNA basis. And this DNA molecule, it continues from one end to the other and in each chromatid. So chromatid, you know, it is actually the arm of of a chromosome. So in a chromatid, a DNA continues its molecule from one end to the other end in a supercoiled form. It is actually coiled. It's actually twisted. And so if there occurs any loss or deletion, or if there occurs any gain or addition of an segment of any segment of DNA, it results in alteration of chromosomes, and which finally brings about a change which is known as mutation, and which leads to the variation in DNA. So I hope you may understand by this that DNA is a double helix molecule. it is supercoiled with each other. It continues from one end to the other end of a chromatid of a chromosome, but at any time, due to any external or internal agent, it may be x-rays, it may be any medicine, or it may be any other agent which will bring about a change, thus induces a mutation. If there occurs any loss or deletion, or if there occurs any gain or addition of any segment of DNA, and it finally brings about a change in the chromosomes, and finally which lead to the variation of DNA. So this is the mutation which occurs due to loss or deletion, or which occurs due to addition or gain of any DNA segment in a DNA molecule, and which finally brings about a change, which finally brings about an alteration in DNA sequence, and which affects both the genotype as well as the phenotype of that very organism. And this phenomena is at the time known as mutation, which was observed, rather defined or described by Hugo de Vries in 1901. And thus finally we may say that this mutation, it leads to the variation in a DNA molecule. So now let's see that there are many types of mutation, and what is germinal mutation and what is somatic mutation. As I have already told you, and you already know, that germinal epithelium, which uh, gives rise to male and female gametes, if any mutation occurs in these germinal cells, at that time this mutation is known as germinal mutation. So germinal mutation, it is a mutation or change or alteration which is occurring in germinal cells or germinal mother cells. And finally, as you know, that germinal cells, they make gametes, and these gametes took part in the fertilization in order to produce an offspring. Hence, the germinal mutation, it gets transferred from parents to offsprings. You should know it. And the second type of mutation here we are going to describe is somatic mutation. So somatic mutation, by name, it indicates that it is a mutation which is taking place in any of the body cell, because body cells are known as somatic cells. So any mutation which is appearing in the body cell is known as somatic mutation, but it does not take place in germinal cells. Hence, somatic mutation is different from germinal mutation, and germinal mutation gets transferred from parents to offsprings, but somatic mutation does not get transferred from parents to offsprings, and finally they die with the death of the individual. Suppose there is an individual, or there is any organism which may suffer by any somatic mutation, which may suffer by any alteration or any change or variation in the DNA sequence in any of the body cell, but it may not affect its it is not affecting its offspring, but these somatic mutations or changes or alterations which are taking place in the body cell of any organism or individual, they finally vanish, they finally finish, they finally die with the death of the individual. So these were the two types, that is germinal mutation and somatic mutation. So germinal mutation taking place in the germinal cells, and as they form the gametes, male and female gametes, and thus forming the zygote. Hence this germinal mutation, it gets transferred from parents to offsprings, while as somatic mutation, it appears in any of the body cell, and thus they don't have any chance to get transferred from parents to offsprings, and finally they die and or they vanish with the death of the organism. So these are the main difference of the germinal mutation and somatic mutation. The question may be asked about you, what is germinal mutation or what is somatic mutation, or simply what is mutation and how it occurs. So if students, if at any time there occurs any, as the genes they are present in chromosomes, so if any alteration in chromosomes occur, this alteration is mostly seen, may God save us from this disease, it is mostly observed in cancer cells. So cancer cells are formed when there occurs any mutation, and then by this mutation and or by this alteration the cells they don't undergo division under controlled division, but they divide uncontrollably. Their division remains uncontrolled, and finally they convert this, they make this individual, or they make this organism to suffer by a disease which is known as cancer. So students, this was today's topic, mutation and its types. Hope you will have understood it very well. If for any query or any problem, do contact me. Have a good day. Thank you.